right, everybody. I'm Tom,
And I'm Andrew.
and we are the Robots After All. I know it's been a little bit, but we're back and we're talking about From Software. I know Andrew is in love with this series, and we're going to talk about some of the games we've been playing. He just beat Elden Ring. I haven't played it, but I've been playing Bloodborne. And I think I'm going to start off here with a little bit of history. So From Software started in 1986. And as a business application software, I don't know what that means, but in 1994, their first game came out, and it was called King's Field, and it was for the PS1. And
Nobody
it was
bought it.
huh?
And nobody bought it.
And yeah, I don't know how popular it was, but it was a 3D real-time RPG, and I did watch a playthrough of it. It's pretty interesting. The music is very haunting, and it almost like it really set the foundation when I was watching this playthrough, because it's very much like they just throw you into the game, and it doesn't seem like they tell you anything. They give a little bit of the story, but then the player, it was like a long play video, and he's just going through first person view, going through, and then like you have like a weapon that you attack like this, so you don't see your character at all. You just see it when he attacks. He draws the weapon in front of you, and there's random enemies, and a lot of the combat is basically you see an enemy and you're in like a hallway, like a Doom style, and you have like an enemy. Yeah, you chop, you have to back up. And the backup, it reminded me of like, oh, that's like a roll dodge, and you go, and then you have to go back in and chop them, wait for them to attack, and go back in. And when you get hit, it's like it does a lot of damage. So that was pretty fun.
Some of that original DNA was there, right? Like they drop you in, they're not telling you anything. And the combat sounds like it's very difficult in this case because of technical limitations.
Yeah. And the graph, I mean, for the time, it seemed like it was kind of a little bit ahead of its time for the time, if you know what I'm saying. I want to read the game summary briefly here. This is by the way, the From Software website. Pretty in-depth. They give a lot of history. They have a timeline of their games and like awards they've won. It's kind of cool. I recommend it. King's Field.
Ready. Let's hear this.
Okay. King's Field is a first-person 3D RPG which takes place in the underground tomb of the Kingdom of Verdite. The player takes the role of Jean, who explores 3D dungeons all alone in this dark fantasy world with his sword and magic spells. A lot of challenges await Jean. The player will gain a great sense of accomplishment when overcoming tough situations in the game. I think that stands out. The player will gain a great sense of accomplishment when overcoming tough situations. So it's kind of like, that's like their mission statement for what's to come. It's like, put you in the insane environment, and just like, once you overcome it, you are like elated. So...
Totally. I actually have as you were reading that, I envisioned a guy repeatedly chopping with a name tag that said Gene on it.
Yeah, exactly.
They keep throwing that out there. His name is Gene.
It is Gene. Weird name choice though.
Yeah, bizarre. Must have been one of the devs or something.
I'm looking at one of the skeletons right now. And a couple more things. Did you know they did the Armored Core series?
You know, I didn't know that.
They did Armored Core, Tenchu 3 specifically.
Okay, I didn't know about the Tenchu games.
Okay. And a bunch of other games that I'm familiar with, like Eternal Ring for PS2.
Don't know that one.
But yeah, and then in, 2009, that's when Demon Souls came out. And... are you familiar that they did a VR game as well?
I am not.
They did this in 2018. The VR adventure Deracine. It's spelled with a lot of accents.
You know what? I actually do remember seeing this on another YouTube channel that it had come out. And I was like, oh, I should check that out. And then I never bothered to. But I think it's more of like a mystery kind of puzzly type of game, more so than a traditional From Software game.
Yeah, I did watch the trailer, and that's kind of the vibe I got. It's kind of walking through unsolving a mystery type of thing. It looked cool, but Be
So the
curious to
mystery's
check
already
out.
solved, and you have to unsolve it.
Yes. Commence the
Twist.
unsolving.
They put a twist on it.
But yeah, that's my little brief segment of From Software. Yeah, and that's all I got for that.
So I'm curious, your history with From Software, because I think you've played a few of the games.
Yes. So I think I started with the original Dark Souls because that's the one you were saying has the wolf guy, right? Sif.
Yeah, Sif.
Yeah, and that's the only one I've really played up until the boss, and then I never beat the final boss, which is disappointing. I really want to go back and do that. I think after I go through Bloodborne, I really want to start at the beginning. And I mean, I probably start at the beginning and then go forward. I mean, Dark Souls, when I first played that one, it was captivating. I didn't hate it. I understood the challenge of it. And I mean, I committed to going through it. It's like each area was its own challenge and its own environment to explore. And I think you didn't really have games that were like that. So
No, definitely one of the first of its kind. And honestly, I feel like if you got to the end boss, you basically beat Dark Souls. Like you did all the hard parts,
right?
Because the finding where to go, getting the right items to then get through the right areas and doing the specific area, because it is open world. I mean, they say that Elden Ring was kind of the first open world, but the original Dark Souls, like you can pretty much go like when you first start the game. I mean, once you get out of the Undead Asylum, you can go down to New Londor Ruins and get your ass kicked. You could go to the Catacombs and get your ass kicked, or you could go to Undead Burg where you only slightly get your ass kicked. But you can go to those other places. So it has a little bit of an open world concept to it, but yeah, I feel like if you got to the end boss, you basically beat Dark Souls.
Well, I'll take it. Although I do want to go back and actually beat him at some point. I might. Yeah, I don't know how I'll do that. If I'll start with that one, or maybe I'll just skip to 2 and go from there, and maybe go back eventually.
Don't do that. Don't even play 2.
Don't play 2.
No, it's the worst. It's like honestly, if somebody described a Dark Souls game to a bunch of developers and then they tried to build it from scratch without ever knowing what the first game was, and they just didn't even come close to the mark of the first game, and there's so many things wrong with it. I mean, one of the things that I think is brilliant about Dark Souls is the environment design coupled with the enemy placement and the kind of enemy design is what makes the game difficult. And like you kind of have to strategically approach situations. In Dark Souls 2, they just throw a bunch of big open areas and then throw 8 to 10 enemies, and they just bombard you with enemies. And it's like, hey, here's what makes it difficult. You have all the mechanics of Dark Souls, but we just flooded the area with a bunch of enemies to make it hard.
Well, I think that's what makes Dark Souls special, is having these kind of enclosed environments sprinkled throughout. And then if you just have the enemies in the open, I mean, you want to have those enemies that sneak up behind you. You want to have the enemies that you come around a corner and they stab you to death. You want to have the enemies that
want all of that to happen.
You walk down a corridor and they jump on you, and they're giant rats, and they have.
Well, I want to be able to walk into an area, because when you start kind of picking up the formula, I want to walk into an area and be like, this is probably what's going to happen. I'm probably going to get ambushed because there's these corners that I can't really see. So like you're kind of prepared for it. And there's probably like 1 to 3 enemies in the particular screen that you're dealing with. But in Dark Souls 2, it's like there's a point where I was like fairly early on in the game where I had like climbed a ladder, and then like all the guys had chased me, and like it's like 8 or 9 guys like came up the ladder after me, and I was like, wow, okay, so this is how you made the game hard. You just literally flood with enemies. I don't know. I played Dark Souls, got to the Sen's Fortress, which is fairly far into the game, and I just got defeated by it. I couldn't get to the top of Sen's Fortress. That's the one that has the swinging blades. Yeah, so trying to get to the top of the tower.
Is that tower where you fight like the 2 people that you have to fight 2 bosses at once?
No, that's Ornstein and Smo, or Smough, or however you pronounce it. But that's in Anor Londo, so that's the area right after that.
Okay. And they
You get to
have
the
one of
top
them
of that
has like
tower.
one of them is fast and one of them is like a big dude.
Yeah.
I pride myself on that fight because I killed them the first try.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
impressive.
that was the one thing I remember most from that game is that I was able to beat them in one go.
That is very, very impressive. That is a very, very hard fight.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I played up until that point, but Skyrim was out at the same time, and I was much more into Skyrim than I was Dark Souls. So I played it up to the point of Sense Fortress. I was like, F this. I went back to Skyrim and just, played that for the 400 hours or whatever it is that I put into that game. And then fast forward, I didn't play Demon Souls because I didn't
Is
really
that
have
the
a
one they
PS.
remade? Which one did they remake?
Yeah.
Remaster?
Well, so they have a remastered of Dark Souls, which is what I was going to suggest. If you do want to replay that one, you should get that for PS4 because it's unbelievable.
Okay.
And they also they did a total rebuild of Demon Souls for PS5.
Oh, and that's specifically for PS5? Or is
Yeah.
that okay?
It's not on any other console.
Oh.
It's gorgeous. I started to play through that, but
You can play Dark Souls on Switch now.
yeah, I actually beat it on Switch as well.
That'd be kind of fun, actually, to have it on Switch
Cool.
and just bring it everywhere you go. That'd be kind of neat. Huh,
Yeah.
I might consider that for Switch.
Yeah, I mean it's still the remastered version, so I think it looks better than Xbox 360, but it's
Right.
still it's 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second, which honestly, like once you play Dark Souls in 60 FPS, it's kind of hard to go back.
Oh, yeah.
But you're probably playing Bloodborne in 30 FPS right now, so
Yeah, PS4, so I guess so. I don't know.
yeah.
That's something I've never really paid too much attention to.
I actually didn't for the longest time. It wasn't until games started coming out on like the PS4 Pro, or now that I'm playing on PS5 and Xbox Series X, like almost everything is 60 frames per second. And then once you go back to 30 frames, you feel like you're like walking through molasses.
Right.
It's just one of those things that like once you experience it, it's very difficult to go back.
Yeah.
And a game like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, where it's really precise, having those specific, those extra frames makes you feel like you have more control over the combat and stuff.
Right. That's why I'm kind of like, I was considering buying Elden Ring. I'm like, I really want to play it on next gen.
Yeah, I would do that.
So I think I'm gonna hold off and then maybe just go with some of the other titles first and go from there.
So not to sidetrack, but would you do Xbox Series X or would you do?
I think I would do Xbox Series X because I think I've played that more. And I know I've talked about Game Pass a lot, but Game Pass has been good to me.
I think PlayStation is getting some form of Game Pass, but I would actually agree. I think that this particular generation, I like the Xbox Series X hardware better. I like the quick resume feature quite a bit. And honestly, like it's just like it's seemingly a more powerful machine, whether it is or not. Like they've just done more work on some of the games to make it feel like the backwards compatibility is giving you an upgrade to games a lot more than I've kind of seen with PS5.
And it seems really user friendly. I love being able to like now with cloud gaming, I could just play something on my phone. I could play something on this computer. And as long as I have like I think that's bundled in with Game Pass. But
you have the Mind Link function hooked into the back of your neck.
Give me the Mind Link. Give me the neural mesh.
As long as you're serialized in the Microsoft database.
Well, yeah. As soon as you get the Elon Musk's chip in the brain there, you just like close your eyes and you're playing. That's the next step right there.
We'll never have any kind of virus scares or anything because no one will ever leave their house ever again, and we'll all die in a pile of our own filth.
Well, yeah, everything will just be like uploaded to that. So it's like the government will just send out like an email to our brain, and then like it'll release like the vaccine or something into your skull and probably kill you instantly.
And that's how you eat cheeseburgers now too. They send cheeseburgers that way.
Yeah, because in the future, there's no flavor anymore. So they have to connect that to the flavor receptor of your brain. And they'll be like this, and you're just eating like, just eating like a blank slate, like this like tofu like white object.
It's just a hunk of soy, and they just turn it into whatever flavor you need.
You have an app. Okay, this is a hamburger, so you have to set like a timer. It's like you hit I was like, in 2 minutes, I'm going to be in this hamburger. Anyway,
Right.
that's the future I want, and I believe in. The Sound of Music comes in a silver
I've
pill.
actually been there, so I can confirm that everything you just said is true.
Okay.
So you're playing Bloodborne right now. That was actually the game that speaking of dying in a pile of your own filth, that was the game that really got me into From Software, because so that came out, I want to say it was like 2014 or 15. I might be wrong about that timing. Might have been 16. But
2015.
okay, so 2015. So it actually came out around the same time as Witcher 3, I believe. So had another kind of strong contender, where I was like getting pulled away from another From Software game. But Bloodborne gripped me so much that I went all the way through it, and I absolutely loved it. And I think it was because the combat was a little bit different. You know, it's a little bit faster paced. It's more kind of focused on you being a little bit more aggressive and taking more risks, and you know, focusing on dodge rather than block. So I just found the game to be more enjoyable. The music was just like super encapsulating. What's the word I'm looking for?
Engrossing.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. Set me up for that one. And
and haunting.
The setting was just incredible. Very Vampire Hunter D, which we both have a.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I think that's the vibe I first got when I saw just like the outfit. He's got the little.
Yeah.
He looked like a classic like Vampire Hunter character from that universe.
Yeah, like the petticoat and stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, I totally forgot about the blocking when I was playing. As I've been playing Bloodborne, I totally forgot that you can't even block.
They actually, when you start the game, it's like in the first area in Yharnam, there's a guy who drops a wooden shield, and you think like, oh, I'll just use this wooden shield, and then, or you know what? It's actually not right at the beginning. Sorry, I think it's actually a little ways in, but you get a wooden shield, and you're like, oh, finally, I have a shield.
Oh, really?
And like, if you use it, it pretty much breaks instantly because the game is trying to tell you like, we don't use shields in this game.
It's all about offense and coast.
So that game really reinvigorated my interest in the series, and then I went back and played Dark Souls 1, and I just like it just clicked, and I literally just tore through that. I ended up really wanted to get the platinum. I'd gotten the platinum for Bloodborne. I really wanted to get the platinum for Dark Souls 1. So I ended up doing like 4 playthroughs or something like that in a row. So I got to really know the game very well on top of really enjoying it on that first playthrough.
Yeah, I mean, you can name all of the towns like off the top of your head. So in case you didn't know, listeners, Andrew is quite the fan of this series.
Yeah, I actually...
you know all the boss names too?
Yeah, I definitely know all the boss names.
What's the name of the moth boss? Isn't that in that one? The moth person?
The Moonlight Butterfly?
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that fight.
That fight was... That actually kind of brings me to a thought of what makes the series like so much different. Like when you walk into that boss room, it's just like this beautiful illuminated, like you don't even realize it's a boss at first. And it's just, you're just on this little thin bridge.
Yeah.
And it's like floating, and you're like, well, it's so early in the game, like you probably don't have a bow, and even if you do, it doesn't really do much damage. So you're like, what is happening right now? Like, how do I fight this thing? So it's like you just have like this mixture of experiencing this like kind of, beautiful visualization, and then also trying to figure out how to fight this thing at the same time. And the energy attacks that it does are like brutal. Like if you're not paying attention, like they'll just like wreck you in a couple of hits. So I just thought that was such a cool boss, where like the first couple of bosses you fight, they're very like the Taurus demon is the first one. He's the one that drops down on the bridge, and you're like, oh my god.
Yep. Yes.
And then the Capra demon is the one after that, I believe. And they're both like very kind of traditional, in your face, aggressive, and there's certainly tricks to them. But the Moonlight Butterfly, you're kind of just like, what is happening right now? Like,
what do I do?
Yeah, like, what is this? And I think that's what like really separates the Soul series from other, games. Like I feel like when you get to a boss in a Zelda game, they would always like in the opening cinematics, like, in like Ocarina of Time, you'd get an introduction to the boss and they'd be like, oh, there's a really, here's my eye, or here's like this big like red spot that they would show that in the cinematic to be like,
Wait for the eye to show up, kiddos.
Yeah, exactly. In this game, it was kind of just like, it's more like you like expect to die the first time, maybe even the second or third time, to try to figure out what the heck's going on before you can even, progress through it. So
prepare to die. Yeah, those games, and they're just memorable. I mean, like I played that game a long time ago, and I remember the moth boss. I remember like the wolf boss, and like I don't remember their names, but it's just like those fights are memorable. It's like they're making an experience that is like a social like experiment in its own way, because that's one thing that a lot of people talk about these games is that it brings back a conversation to the community about like, how do we do this? What do we do that? And I know that I'm not part of that, but it's like, I know that people do that.
Yeah. I think that it's kind of the difference between a game like, it's recently came out, so it's kind of fresh in my mind, but Forbidden West, the Horizon Forbidden West or whatever, where it's just like constant cinematics, constant narration, and that has its place. Like it feels like you're kind of playing through a movie, and the exposition is like very obvious. And then you have something like Dark Souls, which is the exact opposite, where it's like the world is very rich and the lore is very deep and it's very well thought through, but they don't tell you any of it. They give you like the intro movie, and then you're just kind of on your own to read item descriptions, and whatever you want to kind of put into it is what you'll get out of it. And I think that that's really cool, because it's like any worthwhile endeavor, like an instrument or getting into, drawing or painting or sculpting, like what you bring to any one of those things, like is what you're going to kind of get back in return. And some people play Dark Souls just because it's got a bunch of challenging bosses, and they're like, okay, that was cool. It was a bunch of bosses in a row. It was hard, and they're done with it. Other people, like there's a couple of YouTubers, like Vadi Yada, I think is how you pronounce his name, but he does these like really incredible explanations of the lore and the backstory of the characters and the areas. And you could listen to a few of those videos and get totally reinvigorated to play the game over again, just because there's just so much to it that is under the surface.
Is that the guy that you said also beat all of them without getting hit?
No, there's a whole like community of people who are doing the whole no hit runs.
Well, to go back to what you were saying, I think the gameplay, it is the experience. When you compare it to a game like Horizon Forbidden West, it's like all these games, I think, get a little sidetracked with trying to have this crazy immersive storyline, and you forget why the person is playing the game. And when you experience a game like the Dark Souls and all these games that they're putting out, I think that's a really good point, is that you're not being suffocated by having to go through all these long cutscenes and dialogue, like excessive dialogue. You just want to play the game. And that gameplay is such like an in-depth exploratory experience that's what you want to do. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like a refreshing gameplay experience when you don't have to like worry if I'm like have to sit through like a crazy beginning tutorial or something, it's like,
yeah. And the game can be played much faster on subsequent playthroughs. Like and I'm not saying this to brag, because there are people who literally like speed run without getting hit and they're crazy. And I'm like nowhere near that skill level, but I started it on like a Sunday and had it beat by like a Wednesday, just because I know the game so well that like I was able to run through it really, really quickly. And when I was doing the platinum runs, like when you're playing the game back to back, I mean, you can literally go through the game in like 6 hours, just because you know every single thing that you need to do. So it's like the game will move as fast as you're able to learn, whereas you can't say that about other games where you get locked into these cinematics. And you can skip cinematics and stuff, but I feel like certain games are designed to be they're designed to not be overly long, but they have so much filler. They have so many kind of gaps, or even like when we've talked about with the Borderlands series, where the boss fights are kind of artificially lengthened by having these phases of
Invulnerability.
vulnerability. Yeah. Which is totally maddening because it's like, okay, I already like level my character up enough to be able to just like stomp this boss, but I have to wait for the game to like go through its, hissy fit before it's willing to let me actually play.
Yeah, the different stages of the boss fight. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and Dark Souls is just like a perfect design where, again, like the rules are what they are, your move sets are what they are. There's never a time where the game takes the control away from your character, like they do in like a Final Fantasy VII remake or God of War or Horizon Forbidden West, where they like try to make it more immersive by like having a cinematic integrated with gameplay. And I just feel like I'm like, oh, suddenly I don't have control of my character anymore. Like, this is totally bizarre. Which I might be alone on that, but
it's just I'm just so tired of drawn out openings, drawn out tutorial sessions. It's like, just throw me in the friggin' game. I'll figure it out. It's like,
right.
A lot of these people have been gaming forever. If you want to put in like a separate tutorial for people that like have never gamed before in their life, put it in there. Like, there have been countless times where I play with my brother online and we're trying to play this co-op game, but we can't even play co-op until we beat the tutorial thing, which is like an hour plus time. It's like, I don't want to play an hour. I just want to play with my brother. Yeah. Just let me have some fun, man.
It's the age-old thing, that happens in the entire entertainment industry. It happens, in the music industry, in the movie industry, where like the executives who are designing these things are assuming somebody's intelligent level, or they're, basically prescribing an experience rather than just letting the kind of art speak for itself and letting people decide if they want it, if they're going to like it or not. I think Gears of War did a pretty good job with the intro, where it was like, do you want to get straight into the action, or do you want to go through these like barracks or whatever it was, where you could like kind of have a little bit more of a tutorial, like you get a little bit accustomed to the guns and stuff. So if you have your subsequent playthroughs, you're like, oh, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. There were some games I played where you can just drop right in, and it's wonderful, even with like trying to play co-op and stuff. But it kills me when I got to wait that long to like just play a game co-op. And then,
but I like the way Elden, like, not to spoil Elden Ring, but Elden Ring, it just drops you right in. Like you're just basically. I mean, I think a lot of open world games have kind of figured that out, but I think Breath of the Wild had that. The plateau is essentially a tutorial area, which is pretty brilliantly designed. But I almost would like it better if they kind of put that stuff in the proximity, but you could get to everywhere right away.
Yes. Yeah. And I think to move on to another thing that we were talking about before, where these games, they don't lead you anywhere. Like they're not trying to guide you in any directions. And what I'm trying to reference is just like the map that has like all the little icons in it. That's been like, I feel like we've both kind of gotten tired of that trope in gamings, where it's like you have this big sprawling map and then you have all these little pins, and like there's a side quest, here's another side quest, here's another thing, a little thing you can do over here. And it's just like, it gets overwhelming. It's like, that's what's nice about these Dark Souls type of games, where you're just exploring and you're not stressing out about that aspect of it. Because a lot of times I just want to, like with Borderlands, I just want to get through the storyline, but I get sidetracked so easily because there's different characters and other things. I'm like, and I'm like, I have that addictive personality. It's like, I got to do that. And there's a little exclamation point. And with these, it's just like, you have complete freedom of what you do. You can do a walk off a cliff and delete the game forever if you wanted to. It's just kind of how it plays out. It's kind of a refreshing experience in that sense.
It's so refreshing. And I feel like, what you were describing with the big map and all the icons, like that actually detracts from the whole idea of an open world game, because a lot of times you're just sitting in a load screen, fast traveling between the locations. So it's not like you're actually traversing. Like I remember this actually happened to me, I think the first time in Fallout 3, where I was so blown away by how amazingly huge the world was. And then over time, as I started playing the game more, I'm just literally in my Pip-Boy, just constantly fast traveling. And then it's like, you're not. So I started actually deliberately just being like, if I want to go somewhere, I have to walk through the wasteland to get there to make the game more fun. Like I had to like physically make the game more fun for myself. In Dark Souls, there's no fast travel until very late in the game when you get oh, I just played it too, and I can't think of what it's called now, but it's basically like a giant bowl that you put the boss souls into.
The boss souls, the bowl of boss souls.
Bowl of boss souls, yeah. I can't think of it. There's the rite of kindling which you get, which allows you to do the bonfires up to 20 Estus flasks, and then this thing is the other item that you get for beating one of the bosses, and it's how you basically access the last boss in the game. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, but that allows you to fast travel once you get it.
That brings up another point of like the fast traveling. And by the way, the Fallout Pip-Boy experience, very cool at first, very annoying after a while. That menu is awful. And going through all the little like menu things and very cool, but also like it's very slow and like kind of a mess. But with the whole fast traveling thing, the experience, and since I'm playing Bloodborne, I'll reference that. It's like, well, the whole idea of shortcuts. So instead of forcing you to have to like want to fast travel, like, oh, you open up a shortcut and I can just walk that way now and not have to, and avoid all these enemies and just go in this gate that I unlocked from behind and go that way. And I'm right there. I got to fight a couple ogres or some troll guys, but that's no big deal. And it's better than 1,000 one-hitter guys that I can kill. But
and that
whole experience of like it being like this, forcing you in a certain direction at first, but then you're kind of opening up all these little sideways and Willy Wonka ways and fun stuff like that.
Mysterious ways. Yeah, I mean, that becomes an objective when you get to a new area too, because you know that that's how the game is. Like once you see that a couple of times, you're like, this is how these games are designed. So when I got to Bloodborne, I was like, where are the, I'm looking for the shortcuts. Sometimes you might want to dodge through, you got a bunch of blood echoes or souls, and you're like, I just got to a new area, but like, I can't lose these souls. So you just start running through, trying to find the shortcut, back to a lantern or just so that you can kind of save those.
Right. Yeah. That's another whole thing is like, at what point do I collect myself and be like, I got to get back and go back to that home base and spend some souls. That's always on the back of my head is that careful balance of like proceeding too far and then dying and then and losing out on those echoes or souls or whatever you want to call them.
The other thing that Bloodborne does really, really well, first of all, with the whole souls thing in all the games, I love the fact that there's one resource and you just have to manage that single resource to do everything you need to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You need to, you know what I mean? It's like you use this one resource. If you want to buy something, you use the single resource. There's some variation to that, or there's some exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's the case. Because I hate games like The Witcher 3 has like 5 different types of currencies. And you're like, what? It's like, oh, I thought I had a bunch of money. And then you find out that it's like, oh, it's florins, not orins.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's a really, just breath of fresh air in terms of design. And the other thing I love about Bloodborne specifically out of all the Souls series is that there's a lot of weapon variety. But when you start the game, you choose between like an axe, a cane whip, the saw cleaver, and I'm forgetting one more, maybe a hammer or something like that.
Oh, you can start with the cane whip? I totally missed that.
Yeah, I think you can start with it. Anyway, so they give you those weapons, and once you get that weapon, you could play the entire game with that single weapon and have a great time. And you just upgrade that weapon and you imbue it with a gem, and it does, you can get it to do fire damage, you can get it to do lightning damage, like whatever. I'm not overwhelmed. I remember playing one of the first games that I remember playing that I really enjoyed, but I just got overwhelmed with the weapons was I think it was Darksiders 2. It's the
Okay.
one with the four horsemen.
Yep.
It's kind of like a God of War meets Zelda type
I
game.
played a little bit of the first one.
Yeah, both of the games, those two games anyway, are amazing. The third one I didn't enjoy as much, but um, the weapons are dropping nonstop. It's like Diablo, like when you play Diablo 3, and it's just like weapons drop, armor drop, and you're just like, oh my God, I don't have time to evaluate every little sub characteristic on this piece of armor to determine is it better than what I have? Is it better than what, do I want to try to build toward this in the future? Just overwhelming. And in Bloodborne, it's like, here's your weapon, go kill stuff. It's going to be hard, but you don't need to worry about, picking up this weapon or picking up that weapon. When you get a weapon, because they are rarer in the environment, like I remember the first time you find a cannon that like is basically a one-arm cannon that you can use for your gun. I was like, this is like really cool because it's like, it's such a few and far between thing that you can, obtain. Or when you find the other weapons, whatever weapon you choose in the beginning of the game, I'm pretty sure you either buy
You
it
can just find them.
Yeah, you can find them.
I found a spare spear cleaver or the spear. It looks like the cleaver, but it's a spear version. So it has the classic change it into like a giant spear, or you can slash quick with it.
Yeah, so like when you find something like that, because it's few and far between, it feels more special. You're like, oh, I have this other weapon, and I have some kind of emotional attachment to this other weapon. Whereas when you get bombarded with, I mean, even happens in like Borderlands, it's like
Right.
I'm so overwhelmed with the weapons. I don't care about them, and you're like literally making the thing that you're supposed to make the game enjoyable and appealing is the very thing that detracts from games. Like I've started playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and because I've played so many Borderlands games in the past, like as the guns are dropping, I'm just like, this is early level. They're all, greens and whites and blues, and I don't care about these guns. Like,
Yeah.
I know they're not what's actually out there as far as like good guns. So it's hard for me to like really get excited. And you're just kind of being like, oh, well, what are the shooting mechanics for this particular Borderlands game? And then when you get later in the game, in those games, whether it's Borderlands 3 or I can't really say this about 2 because 2 was very special, but you just have so many guns, and it doesn't even appeal to like the collector type people, because I'm actually a kind of a completionist. I like to get every weapon in a game. Well, in Borderlands 2, you didn't have the space to have every weapon in the game. Like you couldn't get every legendary in the game because you didn't have the space in your vault. So you'd have to make dummy characters that you would just like use as like pack mules on like a separate save.
Yeah, I find that to be a very refreshing thing about the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne specifically, since I'm obviously playing that. But yeah, I was going to bring up Borderlands and how oversaturated the guns are. It's just like I end up just selling everything because I just get fed up. It's like it's too much to pay attention to, and it's too much
out of the game.
Yeah, and like with Witcher 2, it's too much. And I know people love that, and like I love it sometimes too. I like to have all those options and make potions and all that stuff, but it's getting to a point where I just needed a long break from it, and I don't want to have to worry about my inventory space and what I can carry.
So stupid. It's like having like email management. Sometimes I remember the first game that I really made a correlation to this was Skyrim, where I was going through my inventory one day and I was like, this is like being at work checking emails. Like I'm literally going through like, I don't need this, I don't need that. Oh, I think I can sell this. Like not that I can sell my email, but it's too much. It's not the way I want to spend time in a game. And Dark Souls basically, it streamlines everything perfectly. So the only thing you're doing is dying.
Yeah, I mean it goes back to the core like mechanic of the game is just gameplay focused. Yeah. It's you controlling the character, which is how it should always be. I mean, right. if you love inventory management, get an inventory management simulator game and spend your days like that.
Simulator in VR.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to spend like have to spend 15 to 20 minutes a gameplay or more like filtering out stuff, having to go to vendors to sell stuff all the time and
Accidentally selling the one thing that you needed for a build or something like
yeah,
that's really
exactly.
annoying too.
Yeah. And then not realizing it and then the buyback is gone or something. I mean, I like that they added like buyback and like
Yes, that's a huge improvement from what it used to be. But
yeah. And it made me think of like Resident Evil 4 because or the Resident Evil games in general, I think that was a fun way to do it because it was almost like you're playing Tetris with your weapons to kind of fit them
that
in
was really
your
cool.
inventory. And but and it's not like overwhelming. You're like, oh crap, I want to pick this item up, but should I use this herb right now so I can get
Yes,
this
but again,
ammo?
but those items were so strategically placed.
Exactly, it's
They were very
strategic.
very sparse, very
Yes,
sparse.
yes,
So
that's
that felt
exactly right.
special. You'd
Yeah, it's like
find it
it's a
done.
part of the
You'd just
game. Yeah, it's
yes,
like yes, it's like embedded in the game where you have to actually think in terms of just being like, it's too many. I gotta. This one has one extra damage. I guess I'll use this weapon and put it in my.
Borderlands is the worst with that because it's like, oh, it's 4,034 times 12, and it's like, oh, I have this other one that's like
Yeah,
18,000 times three, and it's like I and then when you look, if you try to just use like the indicators where it's like, oh, it's like the arrows up, it's more better, but then like you don't account for the rate of fire or something like that. It's like, well, the rate of fire means that even though it does less damage than the other gun, it does more damage over, has more DPS basically. So you should actually
right.
lower damage. So it's like they haven't actually figured out a way to make that system like easy to manage. So you're constantly evaluating your guns in your inventory. And yeah, I mean, basically, after I played Bloodborne and got really into the Dark Souls series again, and then Dark Souls 3 came out, which we haven't even talked about yet, which I really want to spend some time on because that game is like truly special. Um, I started kind of picking up on some of these tropes and some of these annoyances with other games where it used to be exciting to pop in a new game, be like, what's the system and how does this work? But the more games you play, the more you require like there's some set of rules that we already know that like you can just kind of skip over that and like just get right down to a new idea, and I think that some games that have come out over the years like a BioShock or like Dishonored um, just came to the table with new ideas
Right.
and new game mechanics that put a spin on the first person shooter genre. We went from Halo and Call of Duty and that kind of thing, and it was like, okay, that's really enjoyable. How do we take it to the next level? Okay, let's add telekinesis and let's add the ability to shoot, fire from one hand and have different types of guns that you can cycle through on a weapon wheel. On the other hand, or in the case of Dishonored, go through the entire game and don't kill anybody in a first person shooter. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's not the way that I played it, of course, but
Yeah, I mean that's one of the rare achievements for that game is to
yeah.
not kill anybody. There was a game that I started playing on, came out on Game Pass. It's an indie game called Tunic, and it's a very Zelda. It's like third person Zelda like, and it's 3D, but you're a little fox guy. But what they do in that game is very creative because I don't want to fully spoil it, but
I'm ready
you
for a partial spoil.
partial spoil. You find like pieces of manual. So it's almost like you're finding like pieces from like an NES manual
Mhm.
throughout the game, and it's telling you what certain things does. So it's kind of like putting you in the game and you don't know what certain stuff does until you find the manual pieces. So it's almost like this puzzle element of you figuring out, oh, so that does that. And then there's like parts that are in a different language from the game. So it's kind of a really
That's
creative
cool.
idea.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I'm looking forward to playing that, but I recommend it to anybody who's looking for a new kind of gaming experience because it's pretty neat.
That's what I want. I want these game developers to start thinking outside the box.
Mm.
I mean, it's true across the board. When we were growing up, we used to always talk about music where it was just like the first time we heard something like Mike Patton it was like, okay, like here's somebody who's actually breaking molds and trying to do something interesting and different. I feel like that needs to be how game designers are looking at it. And unfortunately, the majority of people are satisfied with the same types of games over and over and over again. And that's why we have the many Assassin's Creed games that we have, and the many, and not that there's anything wrong with those games. I mean, they're brilliant games in their own right. But after the first, 4 or 5 of them, I mean, they even had to change up the formula at least a little bit to make them more open world.
Yeah, and they added more inventory stuff, and you can actually equip stuff now. And I was playing Odyssey for a bit. It is cool, but I did fall out of it pretty quick. I don't even remember why. I just lost interest, maybe. But there was some cool new stuff. But so yeah, you played Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 you didn't like. So what about that?
I've tried that game so many times. I keep trying to create a new save, and I'm like, this time I'm going to do it. I'm just going to power through it, and I just can't get into it. I cannot. And that actually happened to me with Sekiro as well. But I will say that I think that Sekiro is a brilliant game, even though it completely defeated me as a gamer. I still respect it tremendously. I think that it's objectively amazing. It's a beautiful game. The design's amazing. The combat's interesting. The systems are new and exciting and different, and it's a cool spin on what they were doing. It came out after Neo, which was kind of like
Neo,
the Dark Souls.
I don't even know who makes that, but I know it's Ninja. Who is it?
Team Ninja.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people who made Ninja Gaiden.
That makes a lot more sense.
It is basically in my opinion, it's the perfect blend. First of all, I love both of those games, but
when did Ninja Gaiden, their first one, come out? Let's find out.
The one that was the one that was 3D with Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, the 3D one. Gaiden.
It was about 2000.
Was it Black? Ninja Gaiden Black?
Well, I think it was just Ninja Gaiden, and then Black came out afterwards as a harder version of that first release. I think Sigma was the first one. What
I'm getting at was this before Demon Souls? It's my question.
Oh yes, by far. Definitely.
Because that's like the original Dark Souls. Because I remember that game being hard as hell, and you loved that game. And
if you want to talk about the original Dark Souls, it's actually Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh shit, that's right. Yeah. I've gotten close. I've gotten to the boss of that. I might have beat it once as a kid, but yeah, that was woo.
I beat it with save states. I have to say, I could not do it straight through, but I beat it on the SNES Classic. You have to actually beat the game twice, which is just miserable. But yeah, that game is actually the first Dark Souls because you actually are a knight. Arthur is a knight.
Got it. Yeah.
And you're fighting all the, demons. So it's like the same setting and everything.
It's true.
But yeah, so Dark Souls completely blew me away. And then right around that time, after I'd beaten that, Dark Souls 3 came out, and it was the perfect marriage between Bloodborne and Dark Souls. It's literally a meld of those two games. So you have all of the kind of best parts of both of those.
Oh, really?
You move much faster. You can actually start like changing your playstyle. Like in Dark Souls 1, like there is one playstyle that works the best, and that's get the biggest sword that you possibly can and level your strength up as much as you possibly can, and you'll just like decimate. In Dark Souls 3, you could, do more of a mage build. You could do a more dexterity build and have really cool weapon arts. And you can do the kind of more traditional strength build if you want to do that. And you could also spend a lot of time kind of dodging rather than blocking, which I'd prefer dodging to blocking. I just think it's a more engaging play style. And the bosses were really, really, really hard.
The end boss, perfect dodge, where if you dodge, you can like stab them or something. Or is that the parry?
Actually, parry? It's parry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's actually in all the games. That's basically what you get even in Bloodborne when you
the riposte.
Yes, exactly.
Riposte. Yes, that's one of the most sad. I used to love getting that in Dark Souls. It's just like, and the sound effect it makes.
Yeah, well, and what's really cool in Bloodborne specifically is you actually, if they had recently hit you, you get a bit of your health back with that move.
That's a pro tip.
Just in general, when you're attacking, you get like if they attack you and then you just start attacking them, like your health bar just starts to go up.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Man, Bloodborne, man.
Mechanic. Yeah, I think Bloodborne is my favorite of all of the From Software games.
Bloodborne is?
I think I go back and forth between Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, but I think that Bloodborne is just the perfect. It's the perfect game. It's a 10 out of 10.
Elden Ring doesn't do it for you enough.
Yeah,
and so it seems like Elden Ring is very magic focused. Is that?
I mean, I don't think it's anything focused. It's very open ended. You could play it however you want. They took that from Dark Souls 3 and carried it forward. Like if you want to do a mage build, sure. I mean, I did a straight. Well, I didn't do any. I did a Dex Intelligence build, and it was only because of the weapons that I wanted to use.
Were you a samurai?
I started as a samurai.
Samurai Jack.
I don't know what I ended.
You killed the Turtle Pope.
What's that?
Did you kill the Turtle Pope?
No, I will never kill any turtles in that game because that's only what terrible people do. No, no digital turtles were harmed in the making of my.
They will die.
So Elden Ring is kind of a weird thing for me because at this point I've at least played every From Software game more recently. Many of them I've played several times through.
Well, you've already played Elden Ring twice now, right?
Yeah, I platinumed Elden Ring as well, and I will say that it was like even that was kind of a little bit lackluster for me. Like when you have to platinum Bloodborne or you have to platinum Dark Souls 3 or even Dark Souls 1, like those are major undertakings. Like getting every single weapon, every single ring. Sometimes you have to do multiple playthroughs because some of the rings are the +2 or +3 versions. So you have to go to New Game Plus or New Game Plus Plus. And that's why I had to do multiple playthroughs of those games. This game you can actually platinum, and I didn't do it this way because I didn't want to look anything up for Elden Ring. So I played the whole first playthrough without looking anything up.
You're wise.
So I had to play it again, but you can actually platinum it by just doing one playthrough because what you can do is you can actually back up your save right at the end, and then you can go back and do the things that meet the requirements to get the different endings. So I ended up doing that for the other 2 endings that I needed to get. But that's another example. Like,
so you had a save state right before you beat it? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No, you beat it. No, it's even better than that. You actually beat it, and then you can literally go back and meet the requirement to get the different endings. So you can beat it.
How does that work?
You beat it, you back up your save, and then you load up your save and you do one of the endings, and then you get the achievement or the trophy, and then you reload the save again, leave the area that would trigger the ending of the game, but you've already beat the last boss, and then you can go like do the thing that you need to do to meet the requirement for the alternate ending. And then you can fast travel back to that place and just like touch something, and then that gives you the second ending that then gives you the other trophy.
Interesting.
You can do that 3 times. So you can do that for all 3 endings in one playthrough, which it's cool actually. I think that's actually an improvement because it has always annoyed me that I've had to play the game multiple times. But one of the things that I felt like
is it obvious?
No. Yeah, I had to look that up. I couldn't figure that out on my own. But I did one of the weird endings.
So you suck.
Well, yeah. not for that reason. The whole plethora of bad life decisions that I've made that we won't get into that back up that statement. But I did one of the weird endings on my first playthrough just because I wanted to get the I just like started following this quest line, and it just like led me down a path to get this other ending. So but in Elden Ring, you only have to get like 7 swords, like the top 7 swords, the top like most legendary summon spells. So it's like a small percentage of what the game has to offer. Whereas in the other Souls games, it was like you must do everything, you must get everything, and you have to play the game multiple times. And it's going to be a serious test of endurance. So when you unlock that platinum, it has the same feeling that you have from playing the game in general, which is like it's very hard, and when you actually finally do it, it's a huge sense of accomplishment. And getting those platinums was very, very just satisfying to see that trophy unlocked. And with this one, I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm done with Elden Ring. Like I, like, I don't care about this. Like, there was a lot I liked about the game. Very, very.
Do you get a separate achievement for getting all 3 endings? Is it like you got all 3 endings?
You get a trophy for each ending, and then you need all 3 of those endings to then get the platinum. So that's the way.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So Elden Ring was a brilliant game, but the problem that I had with it was the fact that it relied too much on the summon mechanic in its boss design. I didn't find the bosses to be fun because they just seemed like their hitboxes and like their animations were so short. There was like no time to like do anything. Whereas in the other Souls games, like they gave you more time to heal. Like if you made a simple mistake, you could back off, heal during certain like animations. But these bosses were very aggressive, like a Bloodborne boss actually. But you have the moveset of a Dark Souls character, so it's like, okay, this feels like a mismatch.
So does that mean when you say it relies on the summon mechanic, that's like another guy that comes to help you?
Yeah,
but it's like a non-player character.
Yeah, you basically get summons that you can just kind of go through your inventory and just like use once per battle. And you end up kind of just having the boss get distracted by that. And granted, I know that's not the only way to play it, but if I did have to play it soloing the bosses, I don't think the game would be nearly as fun because I don't think the bosses are as brilliantly designed. They feel very lazily designed to me by comparison to some of the other games because they relied very heavily on huge sweeping attacks that took up the whole environment, AoE attacks, AoE blasts. So it's just not the same. I felt like I didn't have these moments of like feeling like I was kind of ducking in and out of the attacks, and like there's a boss in Dark Souls 3 that's kind of renowned for being like one of the hardest bosses in the whole From Software series. It's the Nameless King.
Oh no!
When you beat the Nameless King,
he gets a name.
He does not get a name. He just dies.
No name.
He dies nameless. Well, there's some secret lore about who he might be, but
shit, he's your future self.
He's you. Anyway, so you feel satisfied because of the fact that there's so much cool interaction. You're dodging these perfectly timed like animations, and like everything is just like very kinetic in the fight. And I feel like in Elden Ring it was just like get as far away from the enemy as you possibly can, let them do their BS, get distracted by your summon, and then go in and swipe at their back. It's like this isn't like as fun as like there was so many attacks that the bosses would do where like you couldn't back dodge, you couldn't side dodge, you couldn't dodge to the right, the left. It was just like you had to just be far away, and then you had to try to get them distracted with something else. The windows are just very, very small. So I just didn't love the boss design. The open world design, I think, was a really, really good first attempt. I think it could definitely evolve and become a little bit less copy and pasty. But for the most part, I think that it was a brilliant game, and I would probably give it like a 9 or 9.5 out of 10. Because it's tough because it's like
you heard it here first, folks.
What's that?
You heard it here first, folks. 9.5 out of 10.
I think that it's it's like talking about the worst Radiohead album or something. It's just like the worst of the best is still amazing, right? So Elden Ring is still a very, very amazing game.
But bad pizza is still bad pizza, no matter.
I don't think I've ever had bad pizza because I used to eat like even cafeteria pizza that you could taste the pan. Like it tastes like the metal of the pan, which is probably the worst pizza that I can think of. I still ate it, and I did not care.
That's not good. But do they? One of the things that you're talking about dodging and stuff, I always was annoyed. I think it was in the first Dark Souls where the enemy is like, whoa, and like if you dodge too soon, he's like, whoa, splat, and then like he'll follow your movement and just like hammer down. Like, oh, you went over there, huh? I can see where you went. But sometimes it's a little cheesy. It's just like,
yes, 100% agree. I actually thought that was something that started in like Dark Souls 3. But when I went back and played the first Dark Souls, the person that you're probably even thinking of doing that first is Havel, the guy who has the big dragon tooth. He's got like the big armor. He's at the bottom of the well. He drops the ring so you can like carry more.
Possibly. I don't remember.
Havel's ring. Anyway, he's a pretty like famous. It's like him and Solaire are probably the two most famous like characters in the first Dark Souls. The guy who says "Praise the sun."
Oh, right.
Actually, I don't think he actually even says that. But anyway, so that character, he literally is at the bottom of the well. When you go down there, like if you'll dodge to the right and your character will go left because he's like pivoting in place 360. And it's like moving the camera on you, and you're like, what is happening right now? I didn't even dodge in that direction. But Dark Souls 1 is not about dodging. Like it's not a good option or game mechanic, as compared to blocking or parrying, or just like making sure that you're kind of out of harm's way when stuff's going on. Like whereas Bloodborne is much more like get inside the boss's like comfort zone, and stay on top of the boss as much as you possibly can and dodge like crazy. That's like the best way to beat it. Same thing with Dark Souls 3. So yeah, they're all kind of a little bit different in that way.
Well, I've been loving my experience with Bloodborne so far. I was very hesitant at first. When I first started it, it was very haunting. I was scared, and I still remain scared. I've tried to kill. I'm learning a lot. I've tried to kill certain enemies that didn't go so well. There's like that guy in the beginning where you have to roll through boxes or destroy boxes, and he has like a giant like meat cleaver looking thing. He's killed me every time I've tried to kill him.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like
right at the beginning. Huh?
Yeah, it's on the way, like you're descending, and there's like some like rafters and stuff that go down to like a sewer area. He's just like chilling by a window. He's like hiding behind boxes, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the same guy.
Is he like kind of tall?
He's big. He's like big and rounded, but he's right where like he's very big. He's fat. The big boy.
Oh, that is not appropriate.
See, I'm sorry. PHAT is what I meant. He is tough. Okay, it's right.
Is he the one that is,
right
is
where,
he the one that's?
It's right near the intro, like the first bell, the first teleport bell, and you go down the stairs, and then there's that row of guys that are walking with a dog or something.
Okay, yeah. Is he behind the door? Is he the one pounding on the door?
No, he's just like walking, pacing, and then there's like a big carriage next to him, and you go down. It's in like an open area. It's not like an enclosed space, and then you go down there, and you have to break through boxes to get to him and barrels and stuff. And he's just kind of pacing, and he's like a high level dude for the spot he's in.
Oh,
I don't even think anything's over there.
I know what you're talking about. He's hooded, right?
Yes, he has a hood. It's like an executioner guy.
Yeah. So yeah, when you come out of like the main area in Yharnam, you could go left and you find him like kind of underneath the stair, not underneath the stairs, but he's like behind the stairs. Or you could go toward the village where all the people are. Yeah. He's awful.
He sucks.
The secret with him is to not fight him.
I even like one time I just got past him to see if anything was over there. There's nothing even over. He drops a lot of blood echoes for one, but so he's a good like farming enemy if you can figure out how to kill him. I think the best way to burn him
as he's about to swing, you shoot the gun and you get the riposte with him. If you do that repeatedly, like that's a good way to kill him early on in the game.
Yeah, I really got to practice the riposte stuff and the timing with that to really hone it. I've gotten
which is tough because you have to use a finite resource. You have to use the Quicksilver bullets, which unlike in Dark Souls, you could just basically keep practicing with the shield until you get the timing down. But in this game, it's like you're wasting a valuable resource as you're trying to practice.
I do like that when you kill some of the the bigger guys, you'll get blood vials. Is that what the healing thing is? They'll give you a couple blood vials, which is kind of nice of them.
Yeah, and if you get over 20, it'll actually automatically go into your storage box in the Hunter's Dream.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, so you can actually you can stock up. Like once you
Oh,
get going in the game, I mean, I think that there was a time where I had like 300 or 400 blood
oh,
vials
really?
in storage. So like as I was like really having a hard time with the boss, I would just keep respawning with 20 over and over and
Oh,
over
so
again.
it actually you don't have to go back there to get them. It just that was
Right. Yeah, it just automatically will fill it for you.
that's kind of
And then
neat.
when you respawn and you have like 13 or something, you're like, oh no, I'm out of blood vials. This is not good. So
I'm running low.
yeah.
But yeah, the experience been cool. Very. I remember my first time playing it. There was a point where I got to where there were like women laughing, and I literally thought it was outside my building. And I was
Yeah,
like,
the audio is incredible.
yeah, it was. I was like, what the hell is that? And it freaked me
Yeah.
out. And then finally, I muted the TV and it stopped. And that was like how I figured out that I wasn't like losing my mind.
That you
But
weren't in
yeah,
the
the audio
project.
is insane. The music is incredible. The sound of it is incredible. It's
Did you
just
pay
I'm
attention
just
to that?
glad I'm getting back into it because it is a very cool experience.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked it back up as well, because it's definitely like it's one of my favorite games that I've ever played, and it's hard for it to get its hooks into you. Like if you can play these From Software games and just not really pick up what they're putting down, and it just doesn't really resonate. And I think a lot of people do that. They pick it up, they're like, this is way too hard. I don't want my games to be this hard, but you're missing out on something that's truly special, because the reality is the games actually are not that hard. You just have to learn. You have to pick up what they're putting down. You have to learn the mechanics, and then you can. I mean, like I was telling you, like you can literally run through most areas in any Dark Souls game. Like when I'm doing these multiple playthroughs and I was going crazy, or like when I did Elden Ring again, I did Elden Ring in a day. I did the entire game in a day on my New Game Plus playthrough, because I just knew where everything was. I knew what I could run by. I knew which bosses were required, and I just did that bare minimum very, very quickly. So I think that that's part of the joy of it, is like uncovering the mystery of what are the techniques you need to use to make the game easier, and leveling up obviously helps as well.
Yeah. I think they are games that really can be for everybody. You just gotta try it, and
Yeah.
it gets its hooks in you, man. It gets it in there because there's a podcast I was listening to, Game Scoop. There's this guy that hosted. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that podcast, but he's never been able to get into Souls games until he played Elden Ring, and even that one he hated. But then he gave it another shot, and it like he finally got what it was that like people enjoy about it. And a lot of it is just a bunch of the stuff that we've already kind of talked about. So it's just getting that to that point where you're like, you know what, this is good. I think a lot of people are realizing that. I mean, that's been the talk of the town, is that Elden Rings is like a good entry point for people who have never been able to get into Souls games. But
which is weird, because it is very. I mean, it's a very difficult game.
yeah, it is weird. I think it's weird too. I didn't even.
If anything, I think it's like, I think it would almost be harder, because it's like, where the hell do I go? What do I do? How do I do any of this stuff? It's actually like, I feel like me being a Souls veteran going into that game was such an advantage. Whereas if I went into that for the first time, I'd be like, oh my God, this is like impossible Skyrim.
Well, you know what? That might be what it is. I think people that are saying that are people that have played all the games before. So they're like, Elden Ring is a good entry point. And they're like, yeah, compared to the other ones you played, maybe. Huh?
Yeah. Because I know exactly what to do. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things they were talking about is the teleportation thing is easier in the.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's a lot of people had a problem with that. I thought that was a really brilliant design, that the sites of grace were so plentiful, because it's like that's something that I don't like need as a part of the difficulty. Like I want the difficulty to be built into the combat,
Right.
not necessarily into like I can't get to this area, or I got to this area but I couldn't find the bonfire because it's like in this obscure place. And that was actually one of the problems going, back to earlier in this episode when I was talking about Sen's Fortress in Dark Souls 1. You have all these swinging blades. You're trying to get to the top of this fortress. Well, the bonfire at the top is like off a cliffside.
Oh.
Like fall. You have to like get to the top of the tower, then you have to like go and fall off the edge of the tower to find the bonfire. And it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure that out or find that. So I kept getting to the top and
Right.
dying, and then having to go all the way from the bottom to the top of the fortress each time. It was
Yeah.
brutal.
And those games are a little bit more linear, right? I mean, Elden Ring is a much bigger map.
Yeah, I mean, substantially bigger map, but that's one of the things that I think is being advertised that it's a little bit of a misrepresentation, because as I said before, like Dark Souls 1 is very open world in the sense that you have three potential opportunities right from the rip. As soon as you hit Firelink Shrine, you can go in three different directions. And granted, like
Trilinear. I guess saying it's linear is kind of doing a disservice in some regard, but it's guiding you through like a path where, well, I haven't played Elden Ring, so I don't know, but it seems like Elden Ring, you have a lot more. You can literally just go 360 anywhere you want.
Yeah, you can. And one thing I think that Elden Ring kind of has, in terms of kind of evolving in the right direction for Souls games, is like there's nothing worse than being stuck on a single boss and not being able to go anywhere. That's not a face that should.
This is the final boss of Elden Ring.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the final boss of my nightmares.
I was making a bad face for anybody listening.
Nobody's listening right now. They've long since.
They will last soon.
We lost them somewhere around the time we were talking about Neo, trying to figure out who did that.
Yeah.
No, but I forget what I was saying now. But
the directional, you can go like 360 anywhere, blah, blah, blah.
I think I was talking specifically about Elden Ring in terms of direction. Like, so one of the things I think that the game fixes is that if you get stuck on a boss and you're fighting it a million times over, if you're in Elden Ring, you can just be like, F this, I'm going somewhere,
right.
And literally just go in a different direction and like find something easier.
Yep.
But that also led to the fact that like later in the game, I started uncovering these like early game bosses, and I was just like, yeah, they would just like die instantly.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you get a horse too. Do you like that?
Yes, the horse is probably the best designed horse in any video game that I've ever played. I thought The Witcher with Roach was pretty brilliant, but this is even better because you literally just hit a button and the horse just appears underneath you.
Yeah, I saw a couple videos of that. I'm like, all right, I'm down with that. It's like, why not? It teleports in every other game anyway.
Right,
It's
exactly.
kind of the game tries to hide it from you.
Yeah, like in Witcher 3, Roach kind of just like when you call him, he just kind of comes in proximity.
It's funny when sometimes I'll call him and he'll be like going over like debris or
terrain. Yeah, yeah, that is really funny. Yeah. I honestly stopped using the horse in The Witcher after a while. I was just like, I can just when you're running in The Witcher, there's a stamina bar that you can run a certain duration of time where the stamina bar won't even deplete. So what I would basically do is I would basically just run and not deplete the stamp, like up until the point where it wasn't depleting. Then I'd release the run button for a second and then do it again. Just kind of
that's awesome. Yeah, because the horse can get a little obnoxious sometimes because it tends to want to follow the path.
Yeah. And you're like fighting it to like get off the path. Yeah. There's times to use it, times not to use it, basically. But a lot of times I was like cutting across lakes and stuff. I was like swimming across like a huge body of water to make a shortcut. But so yeah, I mean I think that's From Software in a nutshell. They're very difficult games, but I think if you put the time and energy into learning the mechanics, they're really not any more difficult than somebody, the first time you ever played like a Zelda game or something, right? Where it's like you've got very specific rules that the game sets, in front of you, and people know those rules now because they've been out for 30 years. But I think at some point, like the Souls series it's already started to kind of become tropey. Like there's so many kind of Souls-like clones. A lot of games that are difficult are being compared to it. A lot of game developers are inspired by some mechanics where like, you lose these, like Jedi Fallen Order was very which was another brilliant game.
That game was great. I love that. Very, very combat was very difficult in that.
Yeah. And same kind of thing where you lost, you had like the little meditations.
Oh yeah.
Just like a bonfire.
Yeah.
So I mean, games are definitely evolving because of what From Software is bringing to the table, and I think that's so cool that it's this seemingly kind of you know, something like Demon Souls comes out, or what was it, Kings? What was the thing you talked about from PS1? Kings.
Oh, King's Field, the first From Software game.
Yeah, so I mean, like they kind of came out of this evolution and eventually kind of made a hit that then didn't just do well. Like I feel like BioShock, right? Like that was something that came out of nowhere and it was really great and everybody loved it. It was revered, but like it didn't revolutionize the gaming industry. Like there's not a bunch of BioShock clones coming out.
No, that's true.
But Dark Souls actually like has literally like rocked the boat, and like now, like I saw on I think it was on Twitter, a bunch of Ubisoft, however you pronounce that, a bunch of devs were flipping out that it was like, there's not even any good UI in Elden Ring. Oh, they don't even have like stuff cluttering the whole screen and making it miserable for the player.
Yeah, it's like
they're like angry about it because they don't get the fact that like this is how you design a brilliant game. People are smarter than you're giving them credit for, and honestly, it's your duty to people everywhere to make something that actually forces people to be a little bit smarter or work for something rather than just like force feed it to them, because you're not doing any service with games like Forbidden West.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's it, man. From Software, prepare to die, let yourself die. You have to die in these games. There's no other way around it. Accept death.
Way. Yep.
Face fear, like you told me.
Yep. Fear the old blood.
Fear the old blood. All right, well, that wraps up another Robots After All. And until next time, I'm sure we'll find something else to talk about in the future. Who knows what it'll be? It's a mystery. Maybe the Batman.
Maybe.
All
right. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.
All right. Bye.